This PodClip is brought to you by Paradigm Human Performance.
So going back to your question, right? How do we try and stop this? One is recognizing that it exists. So look, the fact that you brought it up, the fact that you know that it exists, and me being in this sort of space and knowing that it exists, I think that's the first step, right? It's not burying your head in the sand and not pretending that this isn't a problem. And then, so I guess it starts with that. And then there are certain tools that you can do, right? So there are now actually AI tools that you can use to help you take out some of the bias. So you can sort of almost generate AI data, which helps you fill in the gaps for areas where you've got a weakness. And I'll give you a perfect example. So when we were training our algorithms to predict hazard types, an overwhelming number of hazard types were to do with housekeeping, right? Because that's the most popular observation that people make, right? When they're recording observation, housekeeping seems to be the one that goes on the top. And so our algorithm was like at 98% accurate when we had a problem with housekeeping. But for things like a lack of signage, because that's such a rare observation, it was something like 62% accurate. So we had to start inventing training data so that we could bring up the one for signage, for example, or lack of signage, and actually cut out some of the housekeeping one so that we can have a balance of the training data. So there's tools like that you can use to start taking up the bias. But understanding that it exists and knowing that it's there, I think that's the start.
And I suppose you could take a lot of those lessons from humans, because we do that. Like our accident data has led us for so many years, and and now we're like, oh, look at all these slips, trips that we're getting, and housekeeping is the main call. And don't get me wrong, there's stuff you need to manage. You do need to manage that stuff. I get that, but it shouldn't be hard to manage that stuff. But my point here is that we put so much time, effort, and resources into the low risk stuff because they're more common. We end up under resourcing significant risk, which then ultimately, cause a fatality or a serious incident, which is the battle of the transition or the journey that we're going through in safety right now is understanding that we need to focus on the big stuff, never lose the focus on the big stuff. So you can see the flaws in humans, which you're trying to repair. But like you say, you just need to acknowledge them and say, we don't want to copy those flaws into a computer that's, twice as more intelligent than us.